Welcome to MSP 1337. I'm your host, Chris Johnson, a show dedicated to cybersecurity challenges, solutions, a journey together, not alone. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of MSP 1337. I'm joined this week by Dom Kirby of Pax8. Welcome to the show.
What's happening, Chris? I'm excited to be here. I gotta say, you called it 1337, or I always called it MSP Elite in my head.
Hey,
But,
that's all that I care about is like that you can
right?
recognize what it stands for. I mean, maybe we
Yeah,
should call it
yeah.
2600. I don't know. We could really get carried away here.
Right.
So this week's episode, we are literally going with the topic of secure my family. And we've had episodes on the show before that talked about securing remote workforce. How do you get the individuals to recognize that they have some responsibilities when they are working from home? The dangers of, sharing the network with the Xbox or some sort of gaming type model. And really, the idea that says, we know that I have a responsibility for the security layers when I'm working from home or when I'm
Right.
at home, not necessarily it's work related. And we don't have the same mindset, obviously, when we're in the office, because we can say, oh, that's somebody else's job.
Right.
But you had posted on LinkedIn a reference to a blog article that talked about securing, and that it's not this overly complex thing. And I think more importantly, just to set the stage here, is that it's not necessarily about the technology that we put in play to secure our family or friends, loved ones,
Right.
but really it's about an education or an instruction guide, if you will, borderline somewhere between a Lego manual and an IKEA
Right.
guide, right? Like, and you
Right.
just pray, dear Lord, like, can I have tools that are different than the ones that come with my IKEA furniture, so
Right.
that I don't end up with like bruises, ripped off fingernails,
Right.
etc. Right? So walk me through like the idea behind the post, because obviously when I think about security, I think about at home. Um, it's almost as taboo as having the sex talk with the birds and the bees talk with kids,
Right.
right? Like
Right.
let's talk about social media. No, Dad, not now. Like, you're gonna make
Right.
me sit down and I'm gonna have to articulate things that I'm just not comfortable talking about. So, and like, when do you start these conversations, right? We can all get into relatively similar areas of conversation when we talk about, like, make sure the birds and the bees is coming from mom and dad per se, as opposed to finding out about it,
Right.
because you find out how the FUD factor of what will happen if you
Right.
do these things. And oh
Right.
man, I've decided to become a priest or a nun or whatever it might be, so that I
Right.
don't have
Right.
to, I got to avoid all the monsters that you just described. But this is
Right.
kind of the same thing, but maybe a little bit different on the consequences. Or
Yeah, I think, and so I brought it up because I have four kids. They're all boys, and one of them's 12, and it's just, that age. And it's definitely something I've thought about in depth because it's 21st century, right? Kids are exposed to technology at a really young age. All of my kids, whether they're in elementary school or otherwise, they have issued devices, like no different than
oh
I get issued a device for
yeah,
work, right?
absolutely.
Um,
Serial number and everything on it, just as if like they were going to work.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And they have to bring it home. They're responsible for it. So the conversation kind of started there, and that, hey, I don't want to pay for this piece of hardware if you break it,
Right.
right? Like, but it also really just breaks down into your kids are getting on the internet. It's gonna happen, right? Whether it's at your house, under your control, or at a friend's house, or at school. And the internet in general is a great place, right? But we also know that it's a shitty place at the end of the day. Like, there's a lot of stuff on the internet that we'd rather not expose our kids to, or have them be exposed to. So for me, it's always uh, one been about control, but not in the way that I'm trying to limit my kids from understanding technology and how they can use it, but really educating them on here's what's sort of okay and here's what's not. And some of those conversations are easy, right? And some of those conversations, like you said, social media is something everyone's exposed to. It doesn't matter how old you are, it doesn't matter how long you've been around or been using tech. Social media is probably your first encounter with technology, or one of them,
Well, my
right?
dad said so is to what you said about I've got three. So the only
Right,
difference in our challenges is quantity and
right,
age. So my oldest
right.
is 18, my youngest is 14. And so
Okay.
it's interesting, and then obviously in between. What's interesting is you are where I was when I started thinking about this stuff, and honestly, I know I did not navigate well. I wish I knew now what I was trying to solve for then.
Right,
I would have done it a whole lot different. And one of the to kind of just sort of, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole squirrel here, but the number one challenge that I ran into is like, so TikTok bad. Okay. I'm just going to
right,
throw that out there.
right,
Like, not because of the content necessarily on TikTok is bad, but all of these ramifications around what TikTok potentially can do that is
right,
not just negative for my family, but potentially has repercussions way beyond that. And
right,
and it kind of is in the same category of like, we don't even have to get into like what I can do on the internet. Let's think
right,
about devices like shall not be named, but it's where you get like audiobooks and you buy a lot of stuff from them and you can get like
right,
Prime because I might
right,
set the one I have in my office off, even though I know it's on mute. It's probably still listening to me.
right,
And the kids go like, "Well, I just asked, alleged device, and it gave me the answer that I was looking for." That in and of
right,
itself isn't bad, but what are the ramifications that that device might have because of the information that's collecting about me or my family, and where is it safe to have those conversations? And it's super difficult, I think, at the age group that you're talking about because what do you mean there's bad?
right,
Like
right,
you're telling me that Amazon would create a device that out of the gate is bad for me to consume, and yet for $35 I could even get the edition that can be put in my bedroom, right?
right, right, right. That's a really tough one, right? And I think if we have the TikTok, Snapchat, or whatever conversation, it depends on the age. Like my younger kids, they have devices, they get to interact with the internet, but for them, it's pretty damn locked down, right? And then
Right.
as they get older, I kind of like ease those boundaries a little bit and start to honestly just add trust and education.
Are you making them
Um,
use YubiKeys yet, or like a
Not
separate
yet, not
device for
yet.
their two-factor authentication? Like,
We haven't gotten there yet, no. But I think the most prime thing for that is my oldest has a phone, right?
yeah,
And it's an Android device, and it's got the whole concept of app permissions. Obviously, iOS does too. And we've had a lot of conversations about that in general. Like, hey, this particular app that you and he has to ask permission to get an app, right? It sends
sure.
me a ping.
Yep.
Um, and when I'm going to tell him no, I generally tell him why. Now, sometimes it's because that's his 50th ask of the day and his phone's probably full and you're done. But sometimes
Right.
it's like, hey, I looked at this and it wants your location all the time and it wants this. And here's the ramification of that. Like we don't know what sort of organization is running this, bowling game or whatever it might be, doesn't need your location. Right.
Right.
And you can kind of abstract the conversation from there and say, hey, you have to think about these things, right? And in the case of, TikTok has its own other stuff going on, but we can take like anything else, Instagram, right?
Sure.
Um, you know, One, there is bad content on there, and you kind of have to navigate. If you have your kid on Instagram, they may stumble on that, so you have to be ready for that. But in general, I've had very open conversations, depending on age, about uh, actors that might be on the internet looking to do
Sure.
the wrong thing. And honestly, my approach has been just tell them, right? Obviously, within an age appropriate sort of conversation, but like, hey, if that random person is on Roblox asking you for your real name, stop talking to them, right?
Right. And so just to add to that, because I think what's interesting is there are some significantly different challenges that you're about to hit. Like, I don't know when your son's going to turn 13, but 13 drastically changes your level of control
Hmm.
over what they can and can't do. So whether it's iOS with Apple Music and some of those things, like to now I have to physically touch their device to add security layers or
Right,
protection, and maybe not necessarily security, but more of like a roadblock for them so that it's not a whether it's a temptation or just you just don't want them to
right,
accidentally go somewhere that's not healthy or safe. Uh,
right.
are the industry at large has made this very difficult as soon as they
They have.
turn 13. They take a lot of ability for us to create like, no, if it's rated M for mature, you can't watch it. Like, well,
Right,
now you're 13. You can make your own decisions about life,
right,
including
right,
whether or not you want to vote. So
right. That's a really interesting. I hadn't thought about that. And even if you look at like legislature and the children's online Privacy
Hmm.
Protection Act. I think I got it right. COPPA.
Yep.
Um,
Copa, Kappa, yeah.
yeah, yeah. If you even look at that act, it stops mattering really at 13. And I truly disagree with that age. Like I think of myself at 13, I was not mature enough to be handling
No,
uh the breadth and depth of the internet, right?
we
But
haven't given them voting rights or smoking rights or drinking rights. So
right,
I feel
right,
like
right,
we've created some rules. I mean, even going back a little bit to our world when we would go to the music store and buy CDs,
right.
if it was parental advisory, you had
Yeah,
to
a
be
little explicit. Yeah,
16, right? You had to be
right,
16 to buy that.
right,
Our rules on that have gotten really lax, and even navigating that when you look at like TV right now. So we'll just say the movie's rated R. It is being
right,
released on Hulu FX channel or FX channel, and it
right,
says TVMA for the following. And you're like, wait, this is a channel that doesn't even allow content to be above,
right,
say, a TV level of PG-13 or whatever it is. And now we
right,
have all these different like TV rating versus movie rating. And when they get
right.
squashed together on TV, like it changes all these dynamics. You're like, wait, can they watch this? Should they watch this? Like, what's been edited?
It's
Anything?
so
Nothing? Like,
difficult. Yeah,
it's totally a
yeah,
challenge. Yeah.
yeah. Well, in streaming services in general, like the full sort of production is available, right? Because it's not a public broadcast. The FCC is
Right.
not involved. So like we don't have cable and we use streaming and we've done the whole age appropriate profile thing. And then honestly, we run into issues where it's too much, right?
Right.
Like obviously there's stuff that's overrated in my opinion,
Or
and
it's
now we're
across everything at the same time. So, like
right,
Apple
right,
TVs as an example, if I set the Apple TV for age appropriate, then they may not even be able to open like IT Pro TV. They can't even open it
right,
because it's
right.
been defined as age appropriate. As like I think it says mature, and
Really?
only because I think that they just don't want to have to deal with any sort of liability or litigate.
Right,
Kind of like
right,
YouTube, right? If we post this on YouTube, it's going to ask me, is this kid appropriate? Well, you did
right,
say damn, so I'm going to say probably not. We've just been
right,
now flagged as like this is not appropriate for children.
right, right. Yeah, and it makes this world really hard to navigate. And then you have all the other types of content, right? Whether it be websites and making the differentiation between like health and sort of, we'll call it entertainment.
Sure.
Um, e- Even that differentiation is hard nowadays. And then as a parent, if I put myself in the shoes of someone who's not in technology, understanding all that is a nightmare. It's a nightmare for
Right.
me. So even more so for others. And even the tools, there's some great tools out there, and I don't use, enterprise tools in my house. Um, and I used to, but then I got 1 gig internet and the firewall was a little pricey. But I think in general, the tools we use are not super great for for anyone. Like they're so
Yeah.
broad, and to your
Well,
point, the ratings
consumer
and
yeah, consumer tools in general are created for convenience, not for the sophistication of security layers to protect me from doing stupid stuff.
right, right. So it's a tough, I don't know, man, it's a tough world, and I've always just been on that education piece. And um, as you really, really have conversations, and this could, we're talking a lot about kids. You can grandparents or what have
Oh
you,
yeah, this by no means is limited to kids. I think our
right?
challenge, and I think to the point as to why I wanted to have you on specifically for this conversation was that we can put so many products and tools and services, whether they're enterprise or even
Right,
free, and
right,
we can get to a point where we're comfortable, say for that, especially the younger age group of going, I know definitively this is locked down. Products and
right,
services out there have done a really good job in this space. Copa largely has helped define that space. But
right,
when we get into they're not 12 anymore, they're 13 or older, or we're
right,
talking about parents or coworkers. I don't think this is even necessarily tied to whether or not you were a Gen X and younger or baby boomer
right,
and older. It's
right,
really your comfort level with technology and being willing to ask what, as Wayne would always say, it's not a dumb question. It might be a silly question.
right,
And
right,
my English teacher in high school had this banner on the wall, and I'll never forget it. It said, he who asks a foolish question is a fool for 5 minutes. He who does not ask questions is a fool forever. And I
right.
just thought
Yeah,
that's
I
so
like that.
true, but we do a terrible job of creating that comfort zone because we've lumped what we've talked about for the last 15 minutes. We've lumped it into the same category as like, oh man, I gotta have the birds and the bees conversation with my kids. and
Right.
I don't know if they're ready for it. It's like, I want to download another app from the Google Play Store. And you're like, how do I explain that the reason why this says TV or TV, why this says, MA
Right.
only, that's a problem for, his age, and do so in such a way that has them recognize that we're doing this for their protection,
Right.
not because we don't want them to play the game, because we know how fun the game is because we've probably played the game.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, and making that own differentiation too. Like I let my kids play Call of Duty, not online, but they play it together, and I don't care. Right. Like it's not an overt for me. It's not an overtly violent thing. Right.
Sure.
So, but that your mileage may vary. It might not be something you or someone else wants to do. But even that, like now, if I set these, mature restrictions, they can't anymore. So now I
Sure.
have to change how I monitor that. But yeah, I think you have to balance that control with education. Um, and again, like that brutal honesty is really helpful, right? And age appropriate. Like my oldest,
Sure.
I've explained to him what grooming is and why these messages are not good, and because he's old enough to understand that. And
Sure.
obviously, with the younger ones, you have a different conversation. And then I don't know. For me, that's given me some confidence that if he runs into a different device at a friend's house or whatever that doesn't have these sort of controls on them,
Right.
he's hopefully educated in that whatever chat's going on or content may be being viewed is not okay. Um, and hopefully he understands why, and then is confident in bringing it to me or to mom and addressing it with us, so that we can do the parenting thing, right? And I think that's the tough part is you've got to be ready to do those parenting things when your kids are getting exposed to the internet, and understand that all the technology is there, all the technology in the world is there. Someday they're going to touch a different device that you don't control, right? There's
Right.
nothing you can do about that. I mean, you're at a friend's house, and it's over. So I think you have to balance it. And for us too, it's pretty light restrictions until you do something wrong or you try to sneak around something, or
Right.
you know,
You if you start with it's too locked down, you have no place to go but to unlock it, right?
right,
Versus let's put some level of restriction that we know is kind of like, it's kind of like, having a backyard and a dog. You don't necessarily
right,
want the fence to be too narrow, and the dog's like, I don't care that the invisible fence hurts, I want to be
right,
over there, right?
right,
uh
right,
or if you have a playground that has no fence, kids tend to play as far away from the borders as possible, so they become very
right,
saturated against like play structures. You put a
right,
fence in, and all of a sudden all the kids are playing against the fences, so like
right,
they,
right,
right, and they're not necessarily
right,
testing the fence, is it electric or not, but they feel safe, so they feel
right,
like they can go up against those edges. So I want to get into a little bit, we've talked largely about the education. I'll throw one out there and maybe you've got one too, and then let's talk a little bit about like maybe some of the tools, whether they're paid or not, that help navigate this, because I think this is where we get into, it's more about not whether or not you're 7 or 17. This could
right,
be any age group, and just recognizing like that if you don't have some security layers in place, you are literally just walking, through a minefield and just praying that you missed the mines because you're
right,
following
yeah,
the path that looks the most well traveled.
right,
um
right,
so we do this in the school district. Many know that I used to be tech director and handle a lot of the security, especially with students. And coming up, I'm doing sit down with fifth graders, and one of the areas that I like to go to is digitalcitizenship.org, because they have on their website literally like their conversation starters, like not
right,
tools and tech, like here are
right,
9 questions that you can sit around the dinner table and talk about. And so
right,
like my world of security when we first started doing this was, all tech devices lived in community areas like the kitchen, the living room.
right,
They did not go in bedrooms. I don't care if you're charging the device, it does not go in the bedroom.
right,
And as they've gotten older, like my oldest is a senior in high school, we are far less restrictive on that, but we still have the policy of like the door is open,
mm-hmm.
things like that. And we know that, navigating this with teenagers, they still find ways to
Oh, for
circumvent
sure,
security rules. And shoot, man, they are probably the smartest one in the room when it comes to, can I find a way around the wall or the force field, if you will, to get
right,
there. So that'd be the tool that I throw out is digitalcitizenship.org. It's just a great resource. Lots of stuff, especially because it's listed by age group. So whether they're or by grade level, really. So like K2 versus 9 through 12. So
Right.
elementary versus high school, they've got some good stuff there. Um, what's your like go to, and whether it's a informational resource or even a tool, where do you go?
Yeah, I made a lot of it up at first just based on my own cybersecurity
Fair.
exposure
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
some places where my career's taken me. I've seen the dark side in depth, right?
Yeah.
So I
I'm
can
not in the
honestly
K-12
speak
space
to it.
anymore for that very reason.
Right, right. So there's that. I do like digital citizenship. There's also commonsense.org, and I don't
Yes.
think those are related, but yeah,
No,
commonsense.org
they
is
are.
another
So
good one.
digital
They are.
citizenship, sorry, the website is commonsense.org. Digital
That's right.
citizenship
Yeah.
is the content.
Yeah. So that's honestly pretty much the only sort of learning resource I've used.
Sure.
And I think if you're not in technology and you're not experienced with this stuff, just research it and understand what cybersecurity is and what it means. And if you're curious about a particular topic, like being an
Yep.
adult, we get to use Google for whatever we want,
Right,
right?
right, right.
Within the law. So we can we can Google and understand why is this news coming out about, I don't know, Instagram or Snapchat or whatever.
Right.
Um, so from an informational standpoint, I like to gather information at the time I need it.
Sure.
Um, Tooling wise, I use three tools. One of them is a little enterprisey. I have Cloudflare in the house, so we'll kind of gloss over that one. Microsoft Family Safety. So my kid's device, my oldest device is a Surface.
Okay.
So Microsoft Family Safety, it's free with some limitations. We have a family subscription for Office, so it covers that for all the premium. It does, your classic time limits is a big one. Website and app restrictions is a big one. And we're letting him do that door open thing right now, and his desk is positioned such that his screen is always facing the door and those kind of
Sure.
things. And then on mobile devices, we use Google Family Link, I think
Yeah,
it's called.
Family Link. Yep.
Yeah.
Which actually works on iOS devices too. It just doesn't always work as quickly to
Right.
further restrictions. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And Apple has what is it, free time or I forget the name of their
They
feature.
have a couple. We actually use we're AT&T customers, so we use the AT&T Secure Family. So
Oh,
that's
okay.
got some pretty strong platform independent ways to lock that down.
Right.
It's funny. So mobile, you and I are on the same page. We're in our household, we're predominantly we're a mixture of Mac and PC, but the kids' gaming rigs are Windows,
Right.
Xbox. We use the Sophos family for the devices that we can control,
Yeah.
or Sophos Home, I think it's called. That's a pretty strong.
It is a strong
It's
product.
almost frustrating in its level of strength, because something as simple as like, hey, I need to update Steam before I can play the game, and they're like, Dad, I need you to log in again.
Right. Right.
It's like, okay. So I did find some ways, like allowing them to put credentials in for the elevated privileges inside those
Right.
apps. That's getting a little bit techy. We also use use Cloudflare. I think Cloudflare is great. They even have a free version of
Hmm.
Cloudflare. We use it's called um, cleanbrowse.org.
Oh, I haven't
And
heard of that one.
cleanbrowse.org, it's like $4 or $5 a month. I will tell you that sometimes it's frustrating because its DNS caching can sometimes get bogged down and you think your internet's gone, but it's
Oh,
really
yeah.
just playing catch up.
Right.
Um, and then the other one that we used heavily in the school space, and I use still a little bit at home. It's become problematic with iOS devices a little bit in the personal version or home version, is
Right.
Bark. And Bark is absolutely phenomenal product because it's managed by people. So especially when
Oh,
it comes to
interesting.
things like threat to self, harm to others, bullying, those
Right.
kind of things, it flags. But it's one of those things where like, and this is important for those listening that might be wanting to apply some of this, is remember, you can become a full-time IT department at home. Like that's not hard to
Right.
do. Like if we think about the SMB space, you probably have less technology at work than you do at home.
Oh, for sure.
When we add in IoT, and now you're doing what is it, operational technology management, right?
Right. Right.
It's like, hey, so like I may not have responsibility over whether or not the gas pipeline gets blown up, but like what happens if someone hacked my Nest thermostat and
Right.
decided to turn the temperature up to as high as it would go, or mess
Right.
with my hot water heater? Like these are infrastructure These are critical infrastructure items on a level that is sort of microcosmic, but like if
Right.
they were exploited for you, that would be hugely
It would suck.
detrimental.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
security
Yeah.
cameras, those kind of things
Right.
as we talk through some of it. So I think it's, you go back to what you said. Education is key. We talked about some of the tools. How do you encourage the conversation at this point? And I'll give you the floor on this because your kids are younger than mine. But how do you get them to understand? Hey, I would like an added security layer, right? Like we think about it in the workplace. It's like we're seeing this now, like engineers going, "Hey, I realized you gave me the privileges that you did because of my job role. I think you've given me too many." And I would have said 2, 3 years ago, that engineer would never say that out loud. They'd be like, I can't believe
Right.
how much
Right.
power I have. And today they're
Right.
like, can you please take this away? I don't want to be the reason for X exploitation.
Right. Right. That's a really interesting question. I would say in terms of addressing issues that may crop up, obviously, I think all of us as parents probably want our kids to come to us when they have a question, right?
Sure.
Hopefully we're instilling that. Sometimes they won't, right? And that's just the truth. It doesn't really matter what you do as a parent. There's going to be stuff kids want to hide from you.
Right.
Um,
Or their
so
friends are hiding it, therefore they are now
yes,
hiding it. Yeah.
yeah. So if we lean back on tools for just a second, one of the things I was really looking for in picking tools was I might not be locking something down, but I still don't know what's going on, right? So I have this
Yes.
whole
More of
understanding
a
of the
monitor.
websites they go to, right, and apps they use, and we keep an eye on that. And if we see something that flags, then we bring up that conversation. Say, hey,
Sure.
you were looking at whatever you were looking at. So I think that's a big piece in really encouraging them to come to you. Um, I don't know that proactive. I would hope so. I don't know, but I don't know that proactively the
You just
kids
gave
would come
one.
and be
I mean,
like,
you literally gave one to me that is not as easy as you just made it sound. Like monitoring the web traffic
right,
specifically for going to sites in an open model that aren't necessarily best for them so you can have
right.
the conversation. The tool sophistication that's out there isn't necessarily super user friendly unless I'm missing something.
I've been pretty happy with Family Safety. It does
Okay.
a good job. I can spit out, uh, a general history of websites they visited, what it's intervened on and blocked, and why. So I think that's been helpful.
I
Family
think
Link
that's a
is the
big
same
one.
way.
Even
Yeah,
blocking and saying, "Hey, let's have a conversation about this. Do you understand why
right,
it was blocked?" Because I don't know how many times I've seen, like just recently, in fact, um, a redirect breaks because the SSL cert on the admin redirect was
oh right,
not, the timing was off, so it didn't allow the actual cert to apply fast enough. So you got an error message that was just incorrect. And
right,
that was a great opportunity to say, hey, you're right, that was a false positive and we can
right,
correct that. Like, but why do we look for things like the SSL lock in the upper
right,
left hand corner? Like, and it goes back to that conversation piece, but like when they get a block, why was it blocked? Is it because it's known
right,
for malicious activity? Is it because the page you're trying to go to is you should not be going there? Like, don't type that
right,
in anymore. um,
right, right.
and of course
And
as they
that's
get older they're gonna learn more of what they can uh look for that's probably not good for them because they have friends that have told them
right,
about the things that they can go look for. Like, no,
right,
that's not the mascot for the University of Iowa. That is a different type of
right,
character creation, and no, you should not
right,
Google that. So don't Google mascots either.
right, right. Yeah, and that's an interesting one. I think for me, I fully expect my kids to try to circumvent it. They're going to get in trouble for it, but I
Mhm.
fully see that coming uh, because they're my kids, and I did the same thing when I was a kid, right?
Right.
Was breaking through, M86 and those kind of things.
Yes.
Um, but
Ready Player One.
right, exactly. Um, and again, I think that monitoring piece of saying, oh, this may seem like an entirely legitimate piece of content, right?
Right.
Especially nowadays. I tell
Sure.
my kids, like, you need to first assume it's a lie and try to prove that it's the truth if you're looking up something on the internet, right?
Well,
Whether it's
that
for a
goes
school
hand in
paper or
hand.
for whatever.
If you and I were just to go outside and go for a walk and we see a sign that says no trespassing, biohazardous waste beyond
Right,
this point, you're like,
right,
all right, no problem. Let's cut the fence. Let's go check it out. No, we
Right.
we probably
Right.
really wouldn't do that because
Right.
we know and like if we've ever been burned on the stove and we see that it's red hot, we today probably don't go put our hand on there just to double
Right.
check that mom and
Right.
dad may have changed something that makes that no longer true.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
This is a
Um,
tougher space to do that with, like to your point of like how do you do that trust, don't trust it until you prove it, because all of those things I just described as examples, those are all, there is no emotional intelligence tied to that. There's no
right.
emotional like aligning with my ideology or what I've learned from school versus the internet, which largely will over time as you continue to use it, pre-chat GPT even, will
Right.
start to provide you with news and information that you emotionally say has to be true because I want to believe that it is.
Right. Right. Yeah. Whether it's news or, I was working with my kid on a social studies paper. Obviously it involved politics.
Sure.
Man, researching politics on the internet is a nightmare, right? But you have to work them through how to do that and find like legitimate sources
Sure.
of information to write about whoever it was, Thomas Jefferson or whoever,
Right.
um, so that they have this legitimately not, some direction of wing sort of information, actual information.
Right. Like, how
Um,
does it make you feel? Wrong. You're probably not at a good news site.
right, right, exactly. So it's I don't know, man, it's tough. And it's getting into just the general mechanics of using the internet for, we talked about online banking, like even those pieces of why do you look for the padlock, right?
Right.
Those very high level mechanics of the internet also have to be worked into that, because they're going to get older and they're going to have bank accounts and they're going to have Gmails and whatever else they're going to have.
And
Um,
password management and all these other things like good
right,
hygiene. So, one last thing let's talk about real quick, the addiction of technology, right? We know it's a real thing. I mean, shoot, my glasses have actual transition lenses so that I can look at small text on my phone. It's like and I stopped getting headaches. It's great. I
right,
got asked to do this for mental health a while back, and I found this book called a 24/7 364 or something to that effect. And it was this book that was written about one day a week, no technology in the home at all, like zero tech. And it started with like avoid technology for 1 hour, then it was 2 hours, and like,
right,
the reality is like it's going to be different for different people based on jobs, based on what they
right,
use for accommodating for learning disabilities and those kind of things. So obviously technology may not ever be completely zero,
right.
but being conscious of that. So I don't know what your experience is with that, but I know how easy it is to get caught up in like you're just kind of always on your phone. Like I can
Oh
be,
yeah,
my addiction is Amazon. Like
right,
I have the app on my phone. Like if I'm idle, suddenly I'm like, well, I was checking out that pod mic boom arm, and that would make a
right.
really replacement to the one I have because it's got the I'm on the call filter, right? Like so I have it's sitting right here. It's the I don't have a mic in it right
Oh yeah,
now, but
yeah.
it's got a light on it and everything. So what are your thoughts on that? Like I feel like we've talked largely about technology and being safe with it. What we really didn't talk about is preventing it from becoming a health hazard because we're so
Right.
glued or addicted to it.
Yeah, that's a fun one. For me personally, Android has this feature where it'll summarize how long you spent doing what on your phone, and I
Right.
turn that on.
Yeah.
Um,
FaceTime or whatever you want to call it.
yeah,
Screen
yeah,
time, I think it's called
screen
screen
time,
time.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty happy with myself whenever that number goes down for the week, right? I think that's a good thing. And
Right, but what
for
are we
me, it's
basing
like,
that on? If you're down 2 hours from 15 and in the next week you're up
right,
18, then you go down
yeah,
three the following, you're like,
yeah,
oh yeah, I'm doing great. I'm still going down, kind of.
right, kind of, right, technically. That's a really good point. But I think again, having the conversation, whether it's with yourself or with
Sure.
kids or with whoever, about like why did I spend that much time? Was I doing something useful? Could I have been doing something different?
Or
Something I think is
transparency with
important to
what
look
are
at.
you using it for?
Right, right,
Right.
yeah,
Like,
right.
should I be using my phone for this, or would it be better if I actually had the Kindle out? Because I am reading a book and I've
Right,
shifted devices so that while I'm reading a book as opposed to just being on technology, it's not the
right,
illusion that dad's just always on it. So that was the one other I'll give is that we've made it a policy now, like if we're having a meal together, no devices at the table. Now,
Oh, for sure. That's an
if
easy
you're
one. Yeah.
navigating on your own, like rummaging for leftovers and you're eating on your own, I'm not going to beat you up because you're also watching a YouTube movie. I mean, I feel like that's kind of like having a TV dinner, and I'm thankful that you decided to eat over the dining room table where I don't have to worry
Right.
about you spilling it all over the carpet. So,
Right. Right.
slam dunk, great. Similar. So you're saying similar for you too?
Yeah. Yeah. We really try to stick to that of, if something's been cooked and prepared.
Sure.
Um, and it is a family sit down. We try to put the devices away. Right.
And how far apart is the world from our growing up days where it was like, we have a TV, and so everybody has flocked around to primetime
Right.
television's on, so let's eat
Right.
together. And even if you're
Right.
at the dining room table, you just happen to have a TV in the kitchen so that you can all
Right.
turn and face the TV. That's a
Right.
thing in the
When you're still
past.
not communicating, right?
Right.
Like you're not having conversation. But I think it's even worse now that it's in our pocket. We can all
Right.
watch like I think there's actually beauty
Independent.
to sitting around the TV watching a show, right? You get to react to the
Right.
show with each other and whatever.
Right.
If we're all watching our own piece of content on our phone, like you're all in your own little walls, right?
Fair.
So yeah, I think you have to carve that time out. And
And
I
be
think
intentional.
you have to be intentional. And sometimes you have to fight your kids about it. Sometimes they're going to be in the middle of like the best game of whatever they played. And it's like, nope, it's time.
We
Like,
find that that's more bedtime, right? Like,
yeah,
um, especially it's like, well, can I just finish this match? It's
yeah,
like you have the
yeah,
one that you just started 30 seconds before I told you it was like you should be getting ready for bed. You got an early day tomorrow.
right, right,
And then the next day they're like, man, I'm so tired. I'm like, yeah, you did finish
yeah,
the match that allowed you to play that lasted for an hour and a half after.
right,
So we've
right,
kind of gone in the route of like, so our older two really have not so restricted, like it's pretty unrestricted as far as game time. Like, we
right,
encourage them to do other things. But like our youngest, we're like, dude, you got the timer. You have an hour and a
yeah,
half. I don't care if
yeah,
if you don't have any homework, I don't care. Still, it's an hour and a half and you're done. And of course, then our challenges are like, he's paused that timer like a bajillion times, obviously, because we're now going on 4 hours. And he's like, as soon as he's done eating dinner, he's like, I'm gonna go back down and finish. I have 15 minutes left. It's like, how do you have
right,
15 minutes left? Like you started like 3 hours ago. Like,
right.
what happened?
Well, that's that circumvention we were talking about, right?
Right,
They're going to
right,
do it.
right. My
And you
timer
kind of
works
just have to live
way
with it.
different than yours, Dad. It doesn't use real
Right.
time. Like I'm in a
Yeah.
parallel universe. Sorry, you're not with me.
Yeah. It uses me time. It's a different thing.
Dom, any last thoughts? We did go over a little bit, but I felt like there was just one more thing that we need to add, and then it was like one more thing because I think we're
Right.
both navigating the same space. Any
Right.
last words of wisdom for those that are navigating the same space with their kids or loved ones?
Yeah. I would say, not make yourself an expert, but make yourself aware. Like
Sure.
understand if there's something you see your kids doing that you don't understand, you can research it, right? And you
Right.
should research it and you should understand the general mechanics of what kids face on the internet. That commonsense.org is a great spot to do that.
That's my
And
favorite, by the way. And I've been doing this, in the education space with
right.
K-12 school districts across the country. And I will tell you that commonsense.org has easily been the best resource that I've used. The other one that comes to mind is K126.org, which is another nonprofit site that has some insights as to what's happening in the school system. So even though it may not be specific to you as a user, it definitely gives you a broader sense of what's happening in the education space.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, this has been a great conversation, Dom. I really appreciate you coming on the show. For those of you listening, thanks and have a great week.
Thanks.